DungeonGuy713 here. Just a little recap on the Middle Ages. Because there is a game that came out called For Honor. It's, I'd like to say, historical fiction. And basically, everyone here probably seen it, but it's Vikings. Well, knights versus Vikings versus samurai. Got the lore, the background, the weapons. It's obviously historical fiction because knights in the Middle Ages did not run up with a bastard, which is what, kind of like the long swords were called in land. They were called bastards, or at least pronounced bastards, spelt bastard, and the warden, the main knight class. He's pretty cool, but I feel like his light attacks are almost as slow as his heavy attacks. But I'm not here to talk about the game, even though it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and I was just like to say that, you know, um, just get some misconceptions out of the way first. In all Middle Ages, not knights, not, you know, um, but concerning knights. Number one, knights were not chivalrous, and they were not noble, and I mean some knights were, but more or less they, when they weren't at war, they weren't kind of like the old Richard Lionheart, defend the weak. That was more of his just own thing, being a king and being a really, really cool knighted person back in the Middle Ages. And basically, knights were kind of like, they were kind of like the, let's see how, I guess, like the infantry coming home back in the early days. Maybe in Germany or something, they'd pick on the small people, the peasants. They'd be like, oh yeah, I was at war kicking ass because the Catholic Church said so, and Jesus said I could beat the fuck out of them with this blade. One, okay, like I said, they were not noble and all that. They usually mocked the peasants. They were assholes. So basically, I can't remember who it was, but Richard Lionheart helped build the foundation throughout, I think, around the 14th and 15th century of being a more noble and defend the weak kind of knight. And he was pretty cool. But that wasn't started till the 14th, 15th century, and we had a pretty mixed up Anglo-Saxon kind of language back in the 5th century. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it looks almost as confusing as Japanese. And I'm not saying Japanese language is hard or is bad. I'm saying it's complex, and I'm saying, and plus the whole not being enlightened at that point, monks, some kings, the universities, the Catholic Church, sure, they technically saved science because after they said it was a no, after they said, oh, that goes against God's word and all that, they had scrolls and knowledge built up in these universities from the Catholic Church establishing them throughout Europe. And basically, the Catholic Church, bishops, I don't know certain names off the top of my head right now, but certain bishops, they're like, hey, guess what? Maybe we should give them a little knowledge. Not too much to take away our power, but enough knowledge, basic science. They need to learn how this works and this works. And then they messed up because they got so power hungry, and it backfired, and it crumbled. I mean, it went to the late Middle Ages and to the Renaissance, but their empire crumbled, which is sad because the Middle Ages is probably the most interesting, most beloved time in all of history. I loved it. technically I wish I could go back, because people they bathed more back then than people do now. I mean, they bathe like 2 to 3 times a day. They'd wash their hands after meals. They'd give free like supplies, the free soap out to peasants. And peasants weren't dirt poor. There were different peasants. There were like low middle class peasants and everything, you know. Then there were poor peasants, and there were kings and lords and nobles that were actually not assholes. You know, they're either portrayed as being kind of super amazing and loving their people, or they're assholes. Well, most of them were in the middle. They weren't really assholes. And technically, back then, I believe having a king and stuff would actually probably be the best way to rule nowadays, just because it puts the stress all on one person. But he also has, you know, the fuck, I can't think now. He has advisors. He has the Catholic Church. Make sure there's no corruption in the Catholic Church, or very little. You can't just say, because God said, because God said. Because I believe in God. I'm probably not a super devoted Christian, but I believe in God, and I'm not just going to run around, hey, kids, wonder why that happens? Because God said. Okay, intelligence is very vital. You know, strength and intelligence. Well, strength is intelligence and religious intelligence. You can't just run around and be like Catholic Church style. God said so. God said so. Anyways. So let's see. Well, I'm just gonna tie into the Viking Age just a little. Okay. During the Viking Age, Vikings were considered brutal and all that, but they were only surviving how they knew. Life in that time was very, you know, like, kind of shitty. Which ties into the whole Middle Ages. Yeah, Middle Age life was pretty well off too, by the way, just saying. It was really well off compared to us. Like, the food wasn't shit. It was very delicate. You know, you could actually go and, like, watch jousting matches. That would cost a pretty gold piece, you know. And everything else. And I'll talk to you next time.